For the fourth and last part of this lecture, so we will be discussing about the specialized structures on the cell surfaces. So many cells secrete materials that form a covering or matrix outside their plasma membrane. The external environment of the cell, which is the immediate external environment, we call that the extracellular matrix, which is a non-living complex mixture of fibrous proteins and polysaccharides secreted by the cells and surrounding that cell. So the structure and function of the matrix varies with the type of tissue, which is the specialized group of similar cells. So example of extracellular matrix, we have the cell walls and the cuticles. So here is your fluorescent micrograph image of a Arabidopsis seedling. So Arabidopsis is a type of plant. So you can see here the tissue structure, the cell wall here, bluish, blue-green color, and then the reddish yellow, these are your nucleus. So the cells itself, you can actually see here dividing cells. So these are cells undergoing mitosis. So those are the cells undergoing mitosis. So the walls are rigid. It keeps the shape of the tissue. However, the cells themselves can interact with one another. So there is permeability. So animal cells do not have cell walls, but plant cells and many protist and fungal cells do. So we have two cell walls. So you have the primary cell wall, a thin pliable wall formed by secretion of cellulose into the coating around young plant cells. And the secondary cell wall is the tougher one, a strong wall composing of lignin. Lignin is it's different from cellulose, so it is a tough. It's actually the reason why wood is tough. It's actually the woody part of the woods. So you have lignin. They form in some plant stems and roots after maturity. So here is your cell wall. So the plant cell secretions, they secrete cellulose that form the cell wall of the primary cell wall, and then in older plant tissues, those primary cell walls become additional secretions of the cell itself will develop the primary cell wall to form the secondary cell wall, and then you will have a more tougher lignin or lignocellulosic member. So that is your cell walls. Now the cuticle is a type of extracellular environment or extracellular matrix secreted by cells at the body surfaces. So we have plant cuticles consisting of waxes. If you remember the lecture on the biomolecules, waxes are very long chain, or esters of very long chain alcohols with long chain fatty acids. So the cuticles, the waxes, are extremely hydrophobic. So they tend to repel water. That is why plants can retain. So water cannot pass through them. So plants can retain the water inside, and they can also help fend off insects. So cuticles of crabs, spiders, and other arthropods are mostly chitin, which is a type of polysaccharide. So the basement membrane, another extracellular matrix, another type of extracellular matrix, is the sheet of fibrous material that structurally supports and organizes the tissues. It's actually the base on which the cells adhere to form the tissues. So it has its roles also in cell signaling. So they are found in animal cells. So example of a basement membrane is the bone. The bone, your bone, is actually an ECM of the fibrous protein collagen that harden into a mineral by bonding with calcium, magnesium, and phosphate ions. In fact, the bone is a bank, the mineral bank of your body. So if you have your body deposits minerals, calcium, magnesium, phosphates in those bones. That's why people will say that you want to have strong bones, you drink a lot of calcium, you intake lots of calcium and phosphorus. So those minerals are deposited to your bone, making them tougher, stronger material. Now, if your body lacks a diet source for minerals, for example, you are suffering from malnutrition and you do not intake minerals, proper amount of calcium and minerals, your body will withdraw the deposit. So it's like a bank, so it will withdraw the calcium from the bones, so your bones become brittle. So that's the thing about the bones. Now, this is another example of a the basement membrane. So, this is a cornea. So, the tissue is a cornea. So, you have here, this is not a fluorescence micrograph. Rather, it's just the color is due to staining. So, these are the nucleus, the blue ones. So, you can see you have lots of cells there. And then the pink lining, that is your basement membrane. So, that is the platform on which cells adhere to form your tissue. So, it structurally supports the cell. So, aside from the basement membrane, there are other junctions. So, other structures in the cell surfaces, we have the cell junctions. So, cell junctions allow cells to interact with each other and to the environment. So, in the plants, we have the plasmodesmata. They extend through cell walls and connect the cytoplasm of two cells. So, here in the image, you have two cells. So, this is cell number 1, cell number 2. So, this is your plasmodesmata. So, you can see it actually is the one that hooks or it is the one that allows the cell to adhere to one another. So that's your plasmodesmata. So it's found on the surface of your plant cell. So in the animal cells, you have the 3 types of cell junctions. You have the tight junction, adhering, and the gap junctions. So the tight junctions, they fasten together plasma membranes and the adjacent cells. So example here, this is your tight junction. So this is a very as its name suggests, it's very tight. So it's basically waterproof. So water cannot pass through there. So as an example of tissues having tight junctions, you have your skins. Your skin tissue, the cells of your skin are held together by tight junctions. So it prevents water from the inside of the tissue to go outside. So you have that. And then you also have adhering junctions. So adhering junctions, there are different sub-classifications for that. But the main purpose of the adhering junction is to fasten one cell to another. And of course to the basal membrane. So this is one type of adhering junction. So these are adhering junctions, another adhering junctions, and another adhering junctions. So depending on which cells, which tissue they are, so you have specific types of junctions on there. And then lastly, we have the gap junctions. The gap junctions, these are channels connecting two cells together. So they are closable channels that connect the cytoplasm of adjoining cells. So in that way, your cells, the material from one cell can diffuse to another cell. So it allows communication between cells. So this is the gap junction. If you look at it, it's quite similar to the protrusions in the nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope. So you have here channels. These are actually channels. Okay, so these are channels. They can be opened or closed depending on the need. So those are the junctions. So that's it for the different parts of the cells and the specialized structures on the surface. Now, let's discuss about, as concluding part of this lecture, let's discuss about the nature of life, because cells are the basic unit of life. And so, how then do we define life? So, we define life by describing the set of properties that is unique to living things. So, life is a property that emerges from cellular components, but a collection of those components in the right amounts and proportion does not necessarily mean you are alive. A case in point for that are the virus. The virus are not considered living organisms. They are just structures. Okay? So, we have the virus can replicate, they can reproduce technically, but they do not have metabolism. So that's the main reason why they are not classified as living. So life continues only as long as continuous flow of energy sustains its organization. And here we have the properties of the living system. So a living system must have all of these properties. So they must consist of one or more cells. They harvest energy, matter and energy from the environment. They require water. That's actually one of the reasons why the search for extraterrestrial life, the main point is to follow water, to search for exoplanet or a planet or a world that contains liquid water. Actually, not just any water, but liquid water. So, a living system also makes and uses complex carbon-containing molecules. It engages in self-sustaining biological process such as homeostasis and metabolism. It has the capacity to respond to internal and external stimuli. It has the capacity for growth. It changes over its lifetime, such as maturity, aging, and even development. So it passes hereditary material, which is their DNA, to their offspring, and has the capacity to adapt to environmental pressures over successive generations. So that concludes the lecture about the cell and the last part of this lecture series. See you next time.